Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Mike Walmsley. Thank you for joining me. Now, before we kick off, just to check the sound, you'll see a chat button on your display somewhere. If you could kindly just put yes in there if you can hear me. So I've got a response there, so I presume that is that you can, because you wouldn't be putting yes if you couldn't hear me. So thank you, Vinesh, appreciate that. Okay, so we're pretty much ready to go. We've got people still joining, but there will be a recording of this session. Got about 40 minutes. I'll try and keep on time or possibly finish early if we can. I'm going to go through at pace, but if you have questions, please pop them into the chat room, and then I'll try my best to answer those, time allowing, of course. So today's agenda, as you can see on the screen, there are 3 types of manager. When you see what those types of manager are, have a think which one applies most closely to you. We'll then take a look at why KPIs don't work, and I'll introduce you to my new name for KPIs, PSMs, which I hope you'll find some real value from. Then we'll take a look at some strategies to achieve buy-in and accountability to make sure that critically important activities actually happen in your business to your satisfaction. And then finally, a quick look at what I believe absolutely is the hidden secret of management. So I looked on the web today, and I've seen this in adverts, I'm sure you have. We don't have a KPI culture. I want to take a close look at that today and perhaps bust a few myths. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with me, there's a little bit about my background. I was a big billing recruiter, managed people, built a business from 3 to 120 ultimately. Built and sold a peer-to-peer learning program. I've helped a couple of businesses to exit as a recruitment non-exec. I'm heavily involved in leadership and development programs at board level through my Pinnacle Club. And of course, I own recruitmenttraining.com, which has hundreds of videos which we're adding to continuously for managers, directors, and recruiters. So that's a bit about my background. I present internationally at various recruitment trade associations around the world. And what I do makes people a lot of money. So this is an award-winning recruitment business where they invest heavily in training. Hopefully I've made a bit of a difference on top of that through my approach. This particular gentleman claims to have transformed his business as a result of my company's involvement. And this one, I was helping this company from the UK to Australia, and they grew by $10 million, which have approximated to £5 million, which they attributed a lot of that down to my involvement. So that's a bit of my credentials for those of you who don't know me. For those of you who do, forgive me for showing you that again, but let's get straight into today's session. So 3 types of manager. Which one of those is you? Now, there's the manager who doesn't know what's happening. This is the person who doesn't really measure anything. You know, they perhaps don't think that they see KPIs in the wrong way, as many recruiters do, incidentally. We'll talk more about that shortly. So they don't measure things, therefore they don't really know what's happening. Then you've got the manager who watches things happen. So perhaps they are measuring, but they're not intervening to do anything about it. Because part of the reason for measurement is so that you can intervene and fix and improve and coach people against areas of underperformance. And then you've got the manager who makes things happen. This is the manager who's thinking about what's going on, who's analysing, he's looking for better ways to do things, and is then affecting improvements. So surely you want to be the manager who makes things happen. This is an advert I saw today, just pulled it from a job board. I've anonymized it, but essentially it's pretty much accurate as you see there. Now, my strong belief is the owner of that business may not have an understanding of the coaching purpose of KPIs. And, you know, you get recruiters who are given bad KPIs. They're forced to do inane things, as opposed to understanding that if you do more of the activities that take you to success, you're going to be more successful. So, you know, more about that in a second in terms of my take on a new name for KPIs. I call them PSMs now, by the way, predictive success metrics. And this is not about giving inane activities to people. It's about sitting down, analysing, and discussing with your teams the things that will take them to success and buying them into those concepts. And then getting them to agree to going hell for leather to do those activities. Now, if you don't have some kind of measurement in your business, or even if you do, you might be asking yourself this question: why don't they do more of this? Well, it is a deep question actually that goes beyond the scope of a 30 or 40-minute webinar to go really deep on it. But I'll give you some indicators and some roadmaps from today's session that hopefully will help you. Part of it is training, part of it is culture, part of it is measurement, part of it is buy-in, part of it is employee engagement. But nevertheless, you've got to trace that right back to the manager. And I love this quote from Ken Blanchard, which really forces you to think. You've got to be the manager that makes things happen, not the manager who complains about things. So in the chat room, tell me, let's just do this exercise purely on business development, because there's a lot of things you can measure. Tell me, what are the things that you want your staff to do in order for them to win more business? So what are the specific activities? Do you want them to go on more meetings, for example? What type of calls do you want them to make? So maybe if you could drop one thought from you into the chat room about the things, the activities that you want your staff to do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that are going to mean you generate more business as an organization. So in the chat room, please put one idea. Okay, so I've got a flashing light here from the chat room, so I'll take a look there. Okay, so we've got, in fact, two people from separate companies have both said, get out of the office, meet more clients, and another person has put one client meeting a week. Okay, so you want them to get out and meet more customers. And then you think, well, do you want them to meet customers who are not recruiting, but recruit regularly? Because I do. I like to meet customers who are not recruiting, but I know recruit regularly because I've qualified them. Then I'll go down and I'll close them for commitment to the next hire. Therefore, I'm picking up a vacancy, in advance of it happening, so to speak. I'm closing that customer. It's a finely tuned skill, but it's all trainable. It's all learnable, really. So just to fast forward a bit of thinking here, we had a couple of thoughts in the chat room there. It may be some of these things. Now, if you look at client meetings, if you go down, if I work for you and I go and meet some of your prospect customers who are not recruiting today, but I know recruit regularly, and I've got good skill at closing, establishing a need, closing for commitment, I'm going to pick up business for you. That is a PSM, predictive success metric. So how do I get there? Well, if I take a verbal reference call into a manager who used to work, who works in a company that one of my candidates used to work at, and I take a reference on that, that is a predictive success metric. If I do some of those things, then with skill, I'll end the call by flipping that into a meeting. It's predictable. If I speak to clients, if you look at client referrals, if I speak to existing clients and I look that they used to work at a previous organization, let's call that Big Target Company Limited. And I say to my existing warm client, thank you for your feedback on our service. That's very kind of you. Oh, by the way, when we first spoke, I seem to remember you said you used to work at Big Target Company Limited. I wonder if you might be able to help me. I'm trying to develop some relationships within the organization, and I wondered if you could kindly point me in the right direction. Jenny in HR, thank you for that. We will contact Jenny, but we tend to deal with the hiring managers like yourself. So in addition to Jenny, who would be the most appropriate hiring manager to talk to? Dave Jones. How do you know Dave? He's best man at your wedding. Oh, thank you. And who else is worthwhile talking to? Now, that is a simple training technique, simple training issue to proactively generate client referrals. Perhaps you want to measure that. Perhaps you want to measure the number of senior candidates that your staff are nurturing in the background to flip and turn into clients because of the way they look after them. Perhaps you want to measure TSI activity. I'll show you an example of that in a moment, and other metrics. You see, if you do these things with skill, it's predictable you will have success. So I call these PSMs. and this is foundational for me. This is activities that are going to lead to success, that I talk to my staff with, and I buy them into that concept, and I train them on it, and then I measure it. And the reason I measure it is for coaching capability, to see where they've gone off track or on track. I've been working with a business recently, and some of the stuff they love, they're having one or two issues getting staff to actually totally zone in on it. And this is good-hearted people who are busy. So these things take a bit of time to implement and to get into the DNA, but it's starting to happen. They're starting to see success from it. Within a couple of weeks, by the way, so it's not a long track to get these things up and running. What I'm saying is you've got to put your shoulder behind this if you really want it to work. So, you might want to measure this one, TSI. So this is as old as the hills, to be honest. I mean, I was training this 20 years ago in Parker Bridge and since with other individuals. But look at the process, capturing information that you can then use as ways into organizations and mapping out where your competitors are operating. It's not difficult. If your staff do this and then they take a reference on a candidate that used to work there, will that open a door into that company with good skill? Absolutely it will. It's a PSM, a predictive success metric. So if you're with me on that and you think, well, there's some sense in that, Mike, if they do activities that are pretty much guaranteed to lead to success, then I'm going to win more business in this particular instance that we're talking about today. So how do you achieve buy-in to that? How do you get them to want to do this? Do you just tell them? You see, that's the thing about KPI coaches. If you join a company and they say, right, what I want you to do is A, B, C, D, and E, get on and do it. And you're thinking, well, hold on a minute, this doesn't work. I'm not sure if that works for me. Just get on and do it. Make more calls. So a better way to do it, surely, is to buy people into the concept so they deeply understand the value to them of doing it. Now, a really good example of buy-in is from Sir Clive Woodward. Now, Sir Clive was manager of the England Rugby World Cup winning team. When he joined, I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but his background was actually as a sales manager. He worked for Xerox in Australia after he finished his amateur rugby playing career. And he played a bit of amateur rugby over there as well. So he became a top performing sales manager. When he became England coach years later, unusually he brought business principles into the world of rugby. And one of that was buy-in at meetings. So here's set the scene. Imagine Clive, he's just taken over the squad. They're all meeting at a hotel. And his idea is to inspire them that we can win the World Cup. So that everybody wants to win the World Cup. That's all fine. But now he's trying to inspire them. Now, he's a stickler for timekeeping. He's early. And his squad arrives late. Sunglasses on, mobile phones, shorts, not looking smart. So he's seething. But he keeps his cool. And he says, look, to win the World Cup, we've got to be world class at everything we do, on the field and off the field. Let's now brainstorm all the things off the field we have to become world class at, and all the things on the field. And he set them a task, and off they went and discussed it. You can visualize it perhaps. And they're getting quite animated because it's their ideas, not him imposing those ideas. Now, one of the off the field activities that they suggested they have to be world class at was meetings. So Woodward smiled to himself, and he then set them an exercise. Let's drill down into what constitutes world-class meetings and put a set of rules down for that. So they did that. One of the set of rules they came up with was this: world-class meetings do not start on time. They start 10 minutes early. So that was what they came up with. Now, at the next meeting, everybody was 10 minutes early, apart from the captain, Lawrence Dallaglio, I think, who was 5 minutes early. Now, you could argue, not bad. The rest of the team booed and heckled him. So they came up with the concept in their mind. Now imagine if Woodward had gone into that meeting and instead of doing what he did, had just said, right, gentlemen, this is not good enough. There's going to be a change around here. I'm the new boss of the England team. And from now on, meetings are going to start 10 minutes early. Just think what would have happened. Surely it would have been disgruntlement and conversations around, why is he treating us like a kid? Who does he think he is? Now, if you want to buy people into concepts, the foundation could be something like that. So if you wanted to alter your KPIs to become PSMs, and you sat down with your team and you had a brainstormer about what could we do to win more business, and you brainstormed it and you came up with concepts, maybe they would come up with some of these things, or maybe you would get their ideas and then throw one or two of these things in. That's how I do it. So if they don't come up with senior candidate tracking, but they've come up with 4 or 5 good ideas, I'll say, okay, we've got some good ideas today, guys. What about nurturing senior candidates and looking after them in a special way and then flipping them to become clients regardless of whether we place them or not? What do you think? Could we do that? So I'll kind of steer a conversation and maybe sometimes drop those things in. So if you want to make a change, you've got to be the manager that makes things happen. The key to buy-in is to get their ideas. I think that's really, really important. So let's move on now to once you've done this and you've got clearly defined PSMs, you've brought them into concepts. And again, I'm going through this at speed today because, of course, it's a short webinar, but I hope you're getting the gist of that. Again, if you have any questions, please drop those in the chat room. So to be the manager that makes things happen, you've got to have one-to-one meetings. You've got to be able to intervene. You've got to be able to coach. Now, one-to-one meetings should not be something the person does not look forward to. If I'm measuring your KPIs, your PSMs, I'm sitting down with you and you've underperformed slightly, then I'm not going to tell you off. I'm going to have a discussion with you in an adult way and find out the reason why. So if you've never read Stephen Covey's, best-selling business and personal life book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I strongly recommend it. It's a tough read, but it contains some outstanding principles, one of which you'll know, which is win-win. You may have heard that phrase. There's another one, though, is this. One of the 7 habits is seek first to understand, then be understood. This is key in one-to-one meetings to hold your staff accountable for the activities that they've said they're going to do. To illustrate it, I want to tell you a story. And I've lifted this straight from the book, The 7 Habits. So that's the subway in the US. And just take a moment, please, to read the words on the screen. Now, I don't know how you're feeling reading that story, but some people get a little teary about that. You imagine being in that situation. So with one-to-ones, you don't go on the attack. So imagine that's you're having a one-to-one with me and you've underperformed, and I come in and I say, right, this is just not good enough. Things have got to change. Surely I've got to find out first what's gone on. So here's a little pathway for you with one-to-ones. Again, please take a moment to read the wording on the screen. Get them to come up with the ideas as best you can, even in a one-to-one. Get them to do the thinking. And if they give you any excuses and they say, I can't think of anything, well, we've got a bit of time. Here's a blank piece of paper. Jot a few ideas down. And if they come up with some ideas that are useful, take them. I've had things like this when I've done this, where the person says, well, my mother called me during the day and, honestly, I spent about 20 minutes on the phone. I couldn't get her off the phone. There was a problem at home. Now, then I have a chat about that. And I said, look, looking back on that, what could you have done to avoid that? Well, I suppose, Mike, I could have said, look, Mum, can I call you tonight at home? It's, is it really urgent? Can I call you this evening? I'm under pressure. I've got some jobs to fill. Good idea. Yeah, you could have said that. So next time, if your mum calls you in the day and it's something like that, what are you going to say to her? So what I'm really getting at here, guys, that's a small example, a micro example. You coach people. There's a direct correlation, according to Google and Microsoft. The best sales managers, from big studies, by the way, have the best coaching skills. How good are your coaching skills? Are you able to draw out from people with, in a pleasant manner, with sensitivity, with a deep understanding that they may have an issue in their life that's causing the problem, rather than you going on the attack? So, imagine this. I go on the attack to you and bad news. And you say to me, Mike, I'm really sorry. And my mother's got cancer and, it's tearing me apart. Just imagine that scenario. You could have a resignation on your hands because of lack of sensitivity. And by the way, the soft stuff of management is the hard stuff of management. Have that in your mind. So to be a good coach, to ask the right questions, but still be assertive is important. Now, look at the end of that screen there. The pathway is summarizing the actions, because people have lots of meetings all around the world, and then you can't remember what the actions were. So get organized. Maybe use a tool like Evernote or whatever tool you use. I mean, I like Evernote. It synchronizes from an app on my phone through to my desktop, and everything's there. It's nice and easy. You may have your own version of something that you feel is useful. But what I like to do is to say at the end of that meeting, okay, we've got some good actions here. So A and B and C. So I'm now going to make a note of those on my phone. Are you going to do the same? Okay, so if you implement these actions, you'll be back on track. Well done today. Would you like me to help you by holding your feet to the flame? Okay, well, next week in our one-to-one, the first thing I'm going to say is, tell me how you got on with those actions. You clear on that? Great, let's have a great week. So there's a bit of praise going on. There's a nice tone to that meeting. And then you have the second meeting. So I'm giving you some example scenarios. This is the slippery bar of soap. This is the nice person who, is pleasant. Oh, Mike, you're right. Sorry about that. I forgot. So this is what I say in that situation. And the term "I forgot" will never be accepted as an excuse is a good one, because it removes it from that person's armory. And people will use these kinds of things if they think they can get away with it. So, follow the pathway there. Make it clear to them that you're there to support them, but you don't want to have the same meeting over and over again. And then just a little signal at the end of that. Okay, I understand, but just to let you know, we've had a good meeting today. There's some good actions. I forgot will never be accepted as an excuse again. And to let you know, if these actions are not done by this time next week, it's going to be a different kind of meeting. Both on the same page? Okay, let's have a great week. Now, of course, you flex these things. This is not something you just copy. I'm just giving you examples here. In the third meeting, if I've got people that are still not doing things and there are no valid reasons for it, I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit more. And I'm then going to, get involved. And, this is the thing about micromanagement. Well, of course, I don't like to be on anyone's case saying, have you done it? Have you done it? What's going on? But I need accountability. I need people who say, yes, I'm going to do it, who then do it. And if they don't do it, I'm going to get more involved. Is that a bit of micromanagement? Yeah, it's fine. Do it with people who need it. So in the situation where I've got repeat offenders, keep saying they're going to do things and they're not doing things, I may go down the pathway of what's on your screen here. And I'll get them to come to me first thing in the morning with their plan, and at lunchtime, and at the end of the day until they're back on track. So there's a few examples there of how you can use one-to-one meetings to coach them through their PSMs. So if their PSM is to take, 10 verbal reference calls in the week, and they've only done 3, then I'm going to find out the reasons why. I'm going to give them some help and advice and coach them to remove some obstacles. Ideally, get them to come up with those ideas. Get them to tell me whether they think 10 is realistic or not. If it is, I'm going to go for it. And next week, I'm going to hold them accountable for that. Now, I've put management training lack of here. So if you're attending this session today, you're probably managing some people at some level or other. And just ask yourself a rhetorical question. How well were you trained as a manager? I mean, do you really know most of the best techniques to, use psychology with people? Things like, from time to time, I'll use this, with an achiever with this one. Johnny, I'm disappointed in you. You're better than this. I've seen you smash your targets, and this month you're off course. Talk to me, what's going on? Now, I'm disappointed in you. It's just a simple management tool that you use from time to time in the same way you might use it as a parent with one of your children. Can be a bit of a lip trembler, by the way. Point I'm making is, how many of these things do you know? Do you need to get a refresher? And do you know the hidden secret of management? The hidden secret of management is what I'm about to share with you now. Now, why did that road worker, do you think, get his white line thingy down the side of the road and not care enough about his job to remove that little branch out of the way, but instead to go around it? What do you think could have gone on in his world? I mean, hazard a guess in the chat room. What do you think? Do you think it could have been that the manager treated him unfairly, in his mind, a sense of injustice? Could it be that he was promised something, a pay rise that never happened? And he thought, well, sod you then. What do you think it might have been? Anyone got any ideas in the chat room? Remember, the soft stuff is the hard stuff of management. What you want is people to really, really care about the job, do it at the highest level. So the hidden secret of management is employee engagement. And this is the best book I've read on employee engagement. It was written by predominantly David McLeod, one of the world's leading experts in this arena. And he surveyed 600,000 people around the world to find out what makes people go the extra mile, what makes them give extra discretionary effort. Now, you and I, all of us, could give more if we chose to do so. This bank holiday weekend, for example, you could have done a bit more work if you wanted to. Maybe you did. Maybe you could have done a bit more. Now, sometimes you want to do that, sometimes you don't. But I'll tell you this, if you think your manager is a nasty piece of work and treats you badly and is, treating you unfairly, you're probably going to do less of that discretionary extra effort. So managers who understand employee engagement get better results. And there's some evidence of it from, fairly well-known organizations. Accenture, for example, say this, 80% of the variation in engagement levels, and by the way, therefore productivity by default, is down to the line manager. How well do you and managers in your company really understand employee engagement? And are they deploying that within the workplace? Take a look at one or two things on this slide here. This is directly from the book. And just hazard a guess as to, in your business, grab 2 or 3 of those, and hazard a guess as to, in your business, if you did an employee engagement survey, what would be the percentage of people who are either mixed or unfavorable in those things on the screen? And I've only pulled a few things from the book, by the way, not the whole lot, but you'll get the gist of it. So just choose a couple of those that might be appropriate to your business. Maybe things like communicates openly and honestly, effectively communicates reasons for important business decisions. These are the little things that can irritate people and gradually build up in their mind. And there are the percentage of people from the book, from 600,000 people surveyed, who are mixed or unfavorable. It's pretty common, really. So, supports new ideas and new ways of doing things. Okay, so if you've got a dictatorial manager who says, right, guys, we're changing, we're going to do X today, that's not, in their mind, that's not supporting new ideas. That's the manager's idea, not theirs. Have a little buy-in session and say, guys, we're looking at building some efficiencies. What do you think? Who's got some ideas on what we could do here? That's a good idea. That's a good idea. What about if we did X? So having a buy-in session can help with employee engagement, by the way. So, we've gone through this reasonably quickly today. We're about 30 minutes in. Does anyone have any questions? Let me do a quick recap for you. So if you look at today's agenda, we were talking about holding people accountable for actions. Okay, now, holding people accountable for actions, there's an assumption there that people have bought into those actions in the first place. So achieving buy-in is one step before that, perhaps. Then holding them to account, that involves effective one-to-ones. So have a think about, in your business, are you having one-to-ones with the appropriate people in your organization on a weekly basis? And for what it's worth, I keep them reasonably short. I try and focus them around PSMs, keep the agenda tight. If somebody is smashing all their activity targets, it's a quick meeting. It's a stand-up meeting with a coffee maybe. How are you getting on? How did you get on with your targets last week? Great, you smashed them all. Fantastic. Do you need my help? Off they go. With someone else who's having some challenges, I'm going to have a sit-down meeting with them, but I'm going to keep it tight. And that meeting is coaching-led. Remember, there's a direct correlation between the coaching skills of managers and the performance of their sales teams. That's massive, absolutely enormous. I hope you also like the concept of PSMs. Think about it from the individual's perspective. If you impose KPIs on them, they think it's inane bureaucracy sometimes. But if they understand that a PSM, a predictive success metric, is going to take them to success, and they buy into the concept of doing those things, they're far more likely to do them. And now you've got them focused upon the correct activities that are good for them, good for you, and good for the business. And therefore now it's about coaching them if they're going off track for some reason or other. And there's some elements of training there as well. But I hope you found that a rapid fire overview of some key elements of management. Clearly there's a lot more depth that can be gone into in these things. If anyone's interested in exploring this further at live events, you'll find details on mikewalmsley.com of my management training programs in London commencing 13th of September. But other than that, I want to say a big thank you for attending today. Hope you've got some decent ideas that you can take away and use. Thanks for joining me. Goodbye.